Welcome to the October 29, 2025 edition of Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast, where Christian Lavers, ECNL President and CEO, and Doug Bracken, ECNL Vice President and Chief of Staff, tackle all issues, and I mean all issues. Today, they'll talk about the lifespan of a coach. They'll even have data on the other sports across the country and across the world, including looking at soccer overseas. And then they'll take that into what is the lifespan of a youth coach and perhaps give you some ideas on how to expand that, how to make that work. Sometimes they have answers, sometimes they debate it, sometimes they are looking for answers, which makes for a great conversation, and that's what we try to do. So with that, I turn it over to the President and CEO of the ECNL, Christian Lavers. Take it away, Christian.
Well, thank you very much, Dean. Mr. Bracken, we are back.
Yes, we are.
And ready to go.
Yes, we are. What's been going on, Christian, with you the last 2 weeks?
You know what? I had my most entertaining Halloween experience this past weekend. I'm not really a Halloween fan, so I'll preface it with that.
Same.
But what they did I thought was really cool, which was pumpkin racing, where you drill little axles into the pumpkins, put little wheels on the pumpkins, and roll them downhill, decorated, of course.
I'm guessing the ending is spectacular.
Oh, there were multiple heats, by the way. So, and multiple heats didn't finish with a winner. And so
do they crash at the end, or how do you stop?
Some crash, some go sideways. But you drill little metal poles into the pumpkin and sort of create your wheel, which is a challenge to doing that. But I did actually enjoy the soapbox derby of Halloween.
Pumpkin racing.
Never heard of that before.
Where did you partake in this activity?
Somebody's house that has a hill on their driveway. And they invited a bunch of people over to create pumpkin racing.
Okay.
There are kits. Apparently it was I think it was a Manhattan Beach thing at some point, but you can buy a pumpkin racing kit.
Let's go.
And so I did say that is the most entertaining Halloween experience I've had in a long time. And it's something I could actually get into in the future, with some planning of how you make the fastest pumpkin go straight.
Okay. Well, I too am I think Halloween's a little overrated as a holiday. So I'm glad that you got to experience that. You shared that with me because it does make it better.
Well, and the best part about Halloween is that I start playing Christmas music the day after.
Well, it is a fact that on November 1st, Christmas goes up in the Bracken house. So stuff is happening on Saturday. I've already got everything prepared, and the decor of bats and stuff out front right now will soon be turning into Santas and such.
All right. So, see, I agree with that. We have that in common. We do have that in common.
Do you think? Do you feel like you can decorate the outside of your house that
No, it's not. You don't decorate. You don't decorate in SoCal outside, I don't think, in my opinion. It's green and beautiful. A snowman on a green grass yard doesn't seem to.
What about us mortals that live in places like Cincinnati, Ohio?
Where it feels like it's supposed to feel.
Is it too early to put Christmas decorations on the outside of your house? Or does that, because I've traditionally put the outside decorations more after Thanksgiving.
I think that makes sense. I mean, if you want to go a little early, you can, but it might be a little early to go outside. Although, if you got a Home Depot right now, they got lots of Christmas trees for sale already.
Oh yeah, 100%. They're driving. They're well invested in driving earlier and earlier Christmas and more inflatable whatevers. I don't do that. My stuff is classy.
Yeah, no, I don't like inflatables.
Stay classy, Santiago.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was good. Thank you for sharing that Halloween story. My kids are now out of the trick-or-treating age. So we are I think we'll just go over to some friends' house maybe, and they have younger kids who will go trick-or-treat. How about you? You're in it.
Oh no, we'll be trick-or-treating.
Deeply in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And they're dressing up as
I'm not sure exactly. I think we got a Jedi. We might have some other random ghoul, I think. I don't know.
Okay. All right. What about your youngest? I feel like she could be something really cool.
I think she wanted to be a dragon, is last I heard, but that changes day by day.
Day
So
by
I'm
day.
sort of staying out of that
All right. Fair enough.
up
Fair
and
enough.
down.
All right. Well, good luck with that.
Well, I'll need
Um,
it.
yeah, you will. You will need it. The good news is you and your wife get to go through the candy and tell the kids this candy is not good for you.
You know what
Your
you
mom
don't
and I are
need
going to
is
take it.
we don't need any increase in sugar of any way in my house at
No,
all.
no, you don't. You probably don't. Neither do we, to be fair. All right. Let's get into this today. There's a couple things we were knocking around that we're going to talk about today, but we're going to start by talking about kind of the lifespan of a coach. Um, and not only as it relates to, we'll get a little bit into the pro and how short the lifespan of a coach can be um, in soccer and in all sports, honestly, at that level. But also just to kind of dig a little bit deeper on the youth side is, what is, you know, what is the lifespan of a youth coach should it look like? And all the little nuances and different things that come along with that. So, I mean, why don't we start just it's always, I think, to me a great place to start at the very highest level to just like level set and just see and talk about coaching longevity, if you
Well, and
will.
you have two examples that almost fit the stats we're going to share here perfectly just from the last few weeks. You have Ange Postacino. Uh, I'm not pronouncing that right?
Postecoglou, I think is his name. Yeah,
Postecoglou,
yeah, yeah.
sorry.
He's
I said
Australian.
Postacino. I just combined him with
Al Pacino
yeah.
and yeah.
But he was let go, sacked, as I say, from
Yeah.
Forest, I think in his
Eight,
third
eight
month.
games. Eight games.
8 games.
Eight
Okay.
games. He made eight
8 games.
games.
And then as of I think yesterday, Mr. Brian Kelly sacked from LSU
Correct.
after I think this is his fourth year, I
Yeah,
believe.
I think that's right.
And actually those two time frames are actually right in line with the stats that Jacob has provided us. So I'll go through some of these stats and kudos to Jacob again on getting these. Average tenure of coach in professional sport, and then we'll start with like the typical American sports, and then we'll compare that to soccer leagues around the world because it is dramatically different. So
Yeah,
let's see, NFL average tenure 4.3 seasons.
sounds right.
MLB 3.7, NHL 3.5. The leash is getting shorter.
Yes.
NBA 3.2. Those all feel to me fairly reasonable. I mean, you're giving somebody a chance to make progress, and you've got, in theory, there a couple of years you got a year of sort of transition, and then 2 years of build, and that gets you to three something, and then that change is made. Like I can see why there'd be a lot of like the number would be in that 3 to 4 range. That makes sense. That is not what we see in soccer. So if we go now to pro leagues around the world, the bastion of stability in terms of pro coaching tenure is Serie A in Italy with a whopping 1.8 seasons. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And by the way, that
No,
is
that's
the high
that's the
point.
best.
I mean, so then you get MLS at 1.7, La Liga in Spain 1.2, the Bundesliga zero point 0.8 seasons, which somebody could do the math, but that to me sounds about like 9 months. League One in France, same thing, about 9 months. And the Premier League setting the bar here of fastest people to be fired, zero point 0.6 seasons.
So
So
just
you're
over half a season.
just over half a
Average
season.
coach makes it just
Not
over half the
even
season in the
like
Premier
not
League.
even to the All-Star break, if we speak in American parlance.
Yeah, that's craziness. So here's my question: How do
Hold on. I
you?
want to say one more
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Number of coaching changes from 2023. Jacob, is this right? This is coaching changes from 2023 to date?
No, that the stats are from 2023. The time frame is 1996 to 2023.
Okay, so
So it's pulled
1996.
from the beginning of MLS to keep the time frame for all of these
Okay,
leagues
so we're
during the same
saying just
period.
under 30 years.
Yeah, just about 30 years.
Just about 30 years. 561 coaches in Serie A. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's wild.
I mean, what jumps out to me on this is that if you take the average of these soccer leagues around the world, you are about one quarter the tenure of the average American pro sport team. I mean, you talk about a short leash, a lot of turnover and change. It tells you a lot where the power is, and where a
How do
lot of the
you?
blame is.
Here's my question. I was going to ask you is it's you can see where let's use, and I'm by no means a Man United fan, but let's use Man United as an example here. They have churned through a lot of coaches since Sir Alex left, right? And now they have Ruben Amorim, and it feels like he's maybe turning a corner here. Um, at what point, like, how do you differentiate between a guy who has the ingredients but needs time to get it happening versus the guy who's just maybe in over his head or whatever? And then you could add into that pot of stew basically, having the right players, which is, I think we all acknowledge that talent and the level of your players will ultimately determine your success. But obviously, at those levels, the level of the players can be fairly similar across different teams, and that's when coaching probably comes into effect more. But you see some place like Arsenal who has shown a lot of patience with Miguel Arteta, and he has really now become, you know, considered one of the best coaches in the world. So what are your thoughts there? Is it at Nottingham Forest? Are they saying, listen, Ange is just not he doesn't have the ingredients, so we can't be patient with him. I don't know. I mean, how do you thread that needle?
That's a really good question. I mean, if you look at this in the Premier League, League One, and Bundesliga, where you're not even one season is the average tenure. I mean, what do you get? One transfer window?
I mean, in that case, yeah,
I mean, you get
potentially, yeah.
if you can't make moves in the transfer window, or if you get them wrong, I mean, you don't get a chance to even get it
It
right.
might not even be you who's getting them wrong either, by the way.
Correct. Correct. Your sporting director, or maybe you don't have the funds or resources or whatever it may be. I mean, to me, I don't know how to answer your question, to be honest with you, Doug. To me, it makes me say, are the coaches really, are they really that much to blame and that much to credit? I think you do have raised an interesting point of contrasting Man United with Arsenal in terms of patience, because Arteta didn't have every year wasn't a great year. They haven't won
No, they
anything
haven't.
yet, right?
No, they haven't. No, they haven't.
Now Man United
Maybe a
is
cups. Maybe they won the FA Cup or Carabao Cup or something, but no, nothing big.
nothing substantial. Then I mean the best Man United is probably when Mourinho was there,
Yeah, they won
right?
the Europa League, came second in the Premier League, I
Yeah,
think.
I mean,
Yeah,
Man United fans would pay a lot of money to get back to those
yeah,
lofty days.
yeah.
Um, but it begs the question of how much of the success and failure of a coach is impacted by the culture of the organization, by immediate buy-in or support from the locker room. I mean, if if you start with a lot of these teams have similar levels of play, do you think that's fair? Similar levels of player?
Uh, uh, yes, maybe not all the right, maybe not the right mix, but yes, a lot of players that are high level. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're seeing like if again, if you watch Liverpool, they've sold a lot of guys, brought a lot of new guys in. They won the Premier League last year. They're struggling now. Maybe they not have the right players now, and I mean, their coach didn't get bad over the course
Yeah,
of.
I think if you had to ask me, I would err in giving a little bit longer leash and time if you feel like um if you've done the right process in hiring.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I guess if you're turning coach after coach after coach, you have to look and say maybe it's not the coach. Maybe there's something about the culture, about the organization that is part of the issue. I think that was something I saw on social media today that I think the same athletic director hired Jimbo Fisher and had a huge buyout when he was fired um, from Texas A&M.
yeah,
And then the same guy hired Les Miles at LSU. So collectively, there's like $130 million in guaranteed contract payments between those two coaches. I mean, you talk about a whopping
yeah,
two mistakes financially.
yeah,
And yet those guys have had good success in other places. So, does the coach, how much of the coach's success is actually dependent upon being in the right fit for their personality or their vision or whatever it may be, the culture that they want, and how maybe it's a testament that changing culture is certainly going to happen in 1 year. And so if you don't land in something that fits right away in a lot of these sports, you're not going to have the time to evolve it and adopt it. Although I think if you even go back to Sir Alex Ferguson, his first several years at Manchester United weren't extraordinarily
no, it
successful.
took time. Yeah, it took time for sure.
But we talk about this. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting, one, of how much shorter it is in soccer, which is, I think that's crazy. I mean, Jacob earlier voiced the opinion that maybe that's because of the impact of pro rel in soccer, that if it's going badly, there is a need, or at least the perception of a need, to do something before it goes
Yeah,
so bad that you're kicked out of the league. That doesn't happen in the American sports. So, there's probably a little bit longer leash you get just by that
yeah.
fact.
Well, you saw Ange gets fired um, after losing eight straight or whatever at Nottingham Forest, and then they bring in Sean Dyche, who is there to keep them up. Almost, he's probably not a long term solution. He's a short term solution, and he won. He won his first game, right? So there's some justification, I guess, there. But yeah, I think you're right. I think promotion relegation and the money that's tied to that is significant. Um, and going down to the championship is be a financial
Yeah, and all these, and whatever
yeah,
League Two is it's a
yeah,
dramatic financial
sure,
draw. Um, yeah, and I guess then you flip that and say, why are we talking about this? And one, we thought it was interesting, but two, then you look at that the same sort of perception, and I do think that there is, whether it's intended or not, the average parent looks at they don't look at the coach of their kid. I mean, they know it's not pro soccer, but they look at their kid's coach through a similar lens, I think, a lot of times that they look
yeah,
at the pro coach, which is if the team's not winning, it's got to be a coaching issue,
sure.
and it's maybe we just need to change the coach. And I do think that is overly prevalent in youth soccer, but it does beg the question of how long should a coach be with a team? And when do you know that, or when does it seem like it's a good time to make a change or a need to make a change in a youth team?
Oh, a lot to unpack there. Uh, I think I think I think there are a lot of people who say, "Oh, 2 years is a change the coach every 2 years." I don't really necessarily agree with that. I think I think it's a little more nuanced than that, and I think you have to uh, look at the team and their progression as they keep going through. I mean, I've coached teams for 2 years or 4 years or 10 years, right? And I think um, some of it is about, does the team continue to progress at according to their talent level and ability? Um, and do they continue to get better? I think, so I think that's the big answer to the question. I think it would be hard to say, well, there's an automatic, this many. And the reason I say that is because I think probably at the youth level, there aren't enough good coaches to uh, probably set some 2 year standard or whatever. If you had five great coaches and a defined path, then maybe changing coaches every 2 years makes sense. But that's just
Well, I
not
think,
reality.
yeah, I think I generally agree with most of what you're saying. I do think in the developmental age groups, and the younger you get, the more developmental it is. Um, I would err towards changing more, if that makes sense.
Why?
Well, I'd say that given the assumption that you have good coaches to go
That's
from
a
one to the next, and that is a big assumption.
big assumption.
Okay.
Yes.
I actually use another a parallel thing. I was talking to Doug Lamoth a while back, and he was talking about the infatuation with class size in school. And his point, similar to this, was there's not enough great teachers. And so, in some ways, the more you demand the smaller class sizes, which demands more teachers, the more you're putting inexperienced or less qualified teachers in charge of a classroom.
Correct.
And that you can make a strong argument that an expert teacher with a bigger class is going to be more beneficial and impactful on the students' learning than having a smaller class but a significantly less experienced teacher or less expert teacher. And I think if you take that same analogy into, or take that as an analogy into soccer, I think I would agree with you that you're better off having an expert coach who's really good at teaching over a longer time horizon
Yeah.
than changing. That sounds obvious as I say it, but I do think with young kids and with the fact that, you know, there is a positive for different personalities, different ideas to be brought to the kid from year to year. We all have strengths and weaknesses as coaches as well, by the way, or we have um, I don't want to go down the road of biases, but like I may coach in a certain way and like to do certain types of the game more than others in terms of what I teach. And let's say you're the opposite. It's good if I'm a very attack oriented coach and I'm teaching all sorts of things in that area, but I don't do a lot in the defending side. And you're more on the defending side. If I'm the only coach a kid gets for 3 years, they're going to hopefully be really good at attacking, but maybe they wouldn't be as good as defending, which is something they need to learn, right? I'm making that a little bit oversimplified,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Makes sense. So.
But I do think having kids have different personalities and have change as young players, there's a positive to that. But that's under the assumption that you have a really, really good coach and teacher from one year to another when they
And
do change.
and I would add to that a at least fairly unified methodology, right?
Yeah, so
Because
it's
I
not
think,
dramatically different.
yeah, so it's not dramatically different, right? Which I guess I would ask you. I mean, there's no you don't have any scientific numbers for this, but how many youth clubs have that?
An abundance of coaching expertise
Yes, and a unified
and a unified, yeah, not a lot,
methodology. Right, right,
not a lot.
right.
Well, and the
So
other reason that change can be good, and again, if you look at a school, every year you basically are changing, right? At the
right,
young ages, you have your homeroom or your primary class. but you have that teacher for a year and then you move on. And almost, I'm not aware of any school that my kids have been at or looked at where you have the same teacher
Right.
year to year to year. Um, and again, this classroom, there are analogies between a classroom and a soccer field, but there's an end to those analogies, as we've talked about. I mean, you don't keep score in a classroom, which adds a, different feel towards things. But coaches, and I would assume the same thing with teachers, they all have, when you are working with a kid or a player for an extended period of time, you start to have an opinion about that player, right or wrong, that can be a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. And changing and have somebody else working with a player and sort of bringing a fresh perspective is also helpful in that. So I do think there is a value to change, but that as we
Do, do you think that coaches that you've encountered have that kind of self-awareness to be
well,
able to say,
I think
I,
you get more self-awareness over time.
yeah,
But
no
I think
question.
I would say for all of us, if you're with a team year 3, year 4, that it can get stale in some sense, or you can have the sense that, hey, this player's in this role for all these times, and I look at that player and I have an opinion immediately because I've seen the player, I've interacted with the player, I've worked with the player, good, bad, indifferent. Like that is who this player is. I expect this type of things from them, good or bad.
Yeah.
And sometimes a change is good to that. And I think as we are slicing this onion, the question comes down to when do you stay, assuming that you don't have an abundance of overly qualified, really expert coaches, because you don't. And that's not a criticism of coaching, by the way. I think it's a reflection of how hard it is, um, and how difficult of a career path it is, to be a youth coach. But when do you start to say, hey, it's probably time for a change? And that might not even be critical of the coach, because it could be, hey, year 3, it's good to shake it up a little bit and give these guys a different perspective, a different look, and clear the deck, as you would say, just like you do every year in tryouts. Every year in tryouts, you clear the deck and say, okay, what's the best group to put together here?
I don't know. I mean, yes, I think, depends on philosophically tryouts. I say, this player has to be better than the players that we have. So you're not just, and so I'd say I feel the same way a little bit. Here's a team, they're progressing, they're doing well. Um, you know, I'm changing if I have if I know my next resource is one that can continue that process, right? So I don't think I think what I'm saying is change for change sake or change
I don't know.
because
Yeah, I don't like
yeah
that. Change for change
is
sake's not good.
yeah I
What
think
I'm saying is that if we're honest, we all get an opinion of, hey, that is that kid, right?
yeah
And you can jump to conclusions even in scenarios where that's actually not what has just occurred, but because you've had so much experience with that player, you just make assumptions, right? And that when you start to feel that as a coach, you got to fight back against that, probably
yeah
to some degree.
yeah
But that may be a sign for, as a coach, you asked about self-reflection. That might be a time that it's like, hey, is it time for me to make a change as a
correct
coach?
yeah, and that's tough, and just having the mindset and the mentality that you're always open to change your mind, right? About a player, about the way you're playing, about whatever. I think that's an important thing to be able to do. Although I know psychologically it's probably hard to do, to
Well,
change your mind once.
yeah, and you talk about the importance of methodology, and one of the things that I find to be really challenging when you look at like zone one, where, as we know, I'm spending a lot of time now, and older age groups, is there's everything. This is going to be sound self-obvious, but it's so much more elemental in terms of what you have to teach a young player. I mean, there's not a lot of U17 and U18 coaches that are teaching biomechanics of striking a ball or how to manipulate a ball, because those players generally have those skills. To the degree they don't, it's really going to be up to them to do the work
Yeah.
outside of training to do that. But somebody at some point needs to teach a kid what a knee over a ball means. What does a locked ankle mean, for
Yeah.
example? Or how do you recognize? I would say the same thing at 17, 18. There's not a lot of instruction going on of how do you play a 2v1, right? How do you read a defender in a 2v1? Now, somebody's going to say, well, of course there should be in whatever in specific applications. But I'm just saying, teaching a kid for the first time ever how to create how to see, how to perceive an environment, to recognize where they have support and maybe a numerical advantage to create a 2v1 and how to execute a 2v1 based on the defender's movements, the space, the teammate. That's really complicated. That's really, really hard. And I think it highlights what we've talked about before, that there's an expertise in teaching that is very different than the expertise in game management. And
Yeah,
it
we
is
talked
something
about
that
that.
we need a lot more of it in the American game.
And so, would you advocate for a formulaic way to look at this from a club perspective?
Well, I guess what I'm saying on that is when you don't have enough of that to begin with, and I'm saying that because it's really hard, because we all go home from sessions sometimes and say, oh man, that just didn't work. Whatever I tried to do today, it didn't work, or
Oh yeah.
whatever I thought was going to be effective today, it wasn't effective. Even the best coaches have that reflection at times. But if we're saying we don't have enough coaches that are great at teaching, if zone one and younger is the hardest time for teaching because you have to teach so many things because it's basic, then you look to your point about methodology. If you don't have something that's unifying what's going on from the transition from under 8 to under 9 to under 10 to under 11 to under 12, you do risk kids going through a system and very out of 5 years, they might only have a year or two where there's really detailed teaching. And that doesn't mean that the coaches are bad. It doesn't mean they're not trying hard, but it means that the player is going through a system that there is not a consolidated view of, hey, at the end of this year, can all of the players in this age group demonstrate these behaviors? Because if they can't, that needs to be addressed when they go into the next age group. And if they can't, is that because they haven't been systematically taught that across the club? Is that because the players came in behind already? Do you know what I'm saying?
And so, how do you? So you would say, if you're a club leader, you've got to have some metrics, or I don't know if it's as specific as metrics, but you have to have some idea of where they should be at different points along the process, and that's
Well,
how you judge the coach.
yeah,
I'm
well,
I
I
guess
think
I'm
if you
asking.
look, I mean, one of the challenges of developing any methodology is that ultimately you got to meet the player where they are at. Because whatever you think a U12 player should look like, for example, and
Right.
say in Utopia, U12s should have learned all of these skills and ideas. And then in U12, we're going to teach these, and at 13 and above, we go on to other ones. Like that's a utopian starting point. And it probably doesn't exist in any environment except the very, very most professional, where you can pick from a huge number of players, right? Because that means you'll pick the best, and if you have a large number to pick from, the best are going to be more advanced. But if you take an average club and you say, okay, I know what I think a 12-year-old should know already and what I would like to teach generally in the U12 age group, you never get that group, because you get a group of players of which a couple of them, maybe a year or two behind on some concepts that in your methodology you would say they should already have been taught that, and I need to address that, or that kid will be forever behind, right? You don't get this neatly packaged
But would you have
group.
get them if you started with them at 8?
I think there's probably a chicken and the egg issue here of if you started a methodology let's just start at U8 or U7, wherever you start, and say, I'm going to make sure that every single team and every single player over the course of this 12 months, by the end of it, they can do these 7 things or 5 things or 10 things. And I'm going to charge my coaches with that. And I'm going to be intentional of evaluating that at the end. Well, then you can move up to U8, right? And you can say, okay, I know all these kids can do this. You still are going to have the complication of tryouts and change, and you're going to get a really athletic kid that hasn't been taught that, but is worth it. Or you're going to get, you're going to have that, and every year the size of that challenge of change is going to be high, or it's going to get higher. But I don't think that there are a lot of clubs, because it's really hard to do, that are demanding and then assessing in any formal way what has been taught across all ages over the course of the season.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's easier to do at the younger age groups because you can identify very specific, basic technical activities. I mean, can you hit an inside of the foot pass?
Yeah.
And can you control with the inside of the foot?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think anyone doubting this, you just look at the number of players who are playing U13 or U14 soccer, and they can't strike a ball properly with the inside of their foot because somebody's never told them the toe should be up or the ankle locked, heel down, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But they don't do that. And they say they've played soccer for 5 years. And you say, well, how did that happen? But at the same time, you can't just blame the coach because the player has to be receptive to learn and listen.
Should a youth soccer club have a defined path or of coaching? So you're here and then 2 years you'll be here and 2 years you'll be here.
As a coach or for players?
For players, like, you know what I mean? So a defined pathway, like you enter the pathway wherever you enter it. It's then defined where you'll go based on.
Yeah, I think in terms of learning objectives, I think you'd like to have that. I think the challenge with youth,
like what about a defined coaching pathway?
Well, that goes back, I think, to our other discussion of so many coaches look at the coaching profession and the pathway as going from young to old. And I think what really we need, and this might be an exciting thing for us to take a look at in the pre-ECNL, but how do you make a Zone 1 or a pre-ECNL coach path going not from you're a U8 coach and you want to become a U18 coach, but you're a good U8 coach and you want to become a great U8 coach, and then you want to become one of the best in the country at really impacting change of a 8-year-old soccer player, technically and mentally and all the things that go with it. I think that's a way more important question of how do we reward, incentivize, and make them feel important when you're coaching in some of these younger age groups. Because when we talk, you asked the question, the Bracken Brainbuster last week about the Ballon d'Or and what does it take to improve, and I'll just take that general question, what does it take to improve soccer here? And we can talk about things that need to get better without, saying, oh, everybody doing that's not good and we're so bad, because I think there's lots of improvement that's happened.
Yeah.
But I do think all of us need to look and say, how do we make the teaching better? How do we make the teaching better? Because that's different than the game management. And so many times when you look at coaching, it's the same thing when you look at watching an American sport. I spent a lot of time yesterday watching the Steelers Packers or watching a college football game. Or how many Americans are watching that and say, the reason that play didn't work is because the guard had bad technique and how they got off and blocked and where their hands were. Versus, hey, that running play sucked. And I think it's, I'm using football as an American analogy, right? But how many times we've used the example of, is the first touch as bad as it looks in a player? Or is the first touch, it's not actually as bad as it looks. The problem is the player's perception and understanding that they put themselves in such a tiny place that there is no room for error at all. And it requires an almost perfect first touch in order to get out.
Yeah, maybe it's a positioning issue.
It's a positioning issue, which ultimately goes back to a perception and decision issue. How many people are looking at it through that lens and saying, what I really need to fix here is what they see and what that means to them, versus, oh, they just have a bad first touch.
So I want to go back to the I think you hit on what the real challenge is in this country at the youth level. And it was kind of, I just had an aha moment, I guess, is how do you incentivize or recognize or reward the U8 coach to go from good to great to one of the best, and really, because I think that is the fundamental problem. The fundamental problem is either we aren't recognizing, rewarding whatever people in those different, zones of coaching. And then the panacea in a youth environment is to coach the top teams at the older age groups. That is the end all be all. And that tells me that I'm good because that's where I got to. And so when I come in as the U8 coach, that's what I aspire to do. So how do we change that calculus? Because I think that's the fundamental challenge.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't know, but I think one place we should
Besides
probably
having a
look.
kid that plays in it, right?
Yeah.
Which is very
Well, it forces you to learn real
that's
fast.
motivating. Yeah, that's very
you know.
motivating.
And by the way, I think there's probably a lot of people who find themselves in that scenario. But I do think one place we should look is what do the best schools do? What do the best schools do to make the first grade teacher or the second grade teacher feel valued, supported, important, and want to stay and be the best first grade teacher in the country? Because I'm sure that's not totally foreign.
But they don't they aren't isn't that in their studies, like it's elementary education versus isn't that
Well, there's probably a point to
be
that.
in that zone? Like I know that we're talking some about some coaching education within the ECNL that we're trying to put together that is specific to different age groups and zones of
Yeah.
coaching. It could that be one of the
You know
things?
what? This makes me think about one of the challenges Ross Pauly has talked about with scouting in ID2 is explaining to a scout or showing a scout, just like a player, what does great look like or what does best look like?
Yeah.
And I think there's the answer to that is the best tool to do that is video and say, this is what this behavior looks like done by what we would consider to be a top level player of this age. And I think there's probably value to that from a coaching perspective where you say, what does best look like at U8, U10, U12 in terms of the training environment, in terms of the coach in the environment, not just like a video of the players. But another thing that would be interesting, and I talk about this, when we're reflecting with coaches all the time. If you took videos of the team at the beginning of the season to the end of the season, how different do they look? You know what I mean? Or take
Yeah.
videos of a training environment from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, and how different does that look? Because it's like when you're with anybody, you don't see them age day to day, right? But it's when you haven't seen somebody for 6 months or a year and you see them and you can tell they look different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the same thing with the training environment as a coach or as a parent, especially. You forgot what they looked like on day one by day 300,
Yeah.
right? Day
Yeah.
300 has presented its own set of issues, challenges, ups and downs, and emotions or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
Of
And
course.
you're evaluating day 300 as day 300. But if you look back to day one, how different is it? And I think there's some value maybe in some longitudinal looks at that in terms of evaluating coaches. I mean, because without this stuff, without a rethink in some of these areas, and I'm going to give an example. And we were talking about technology today and whether we would get into this, but I just have to say this because I have to say it. I see video, complicated video systems being used in U6 games. and U7 games where there are cameras set up to capture these games that, the camera purpose originally is, to help kids with identification by capturing older players who need to be seen so they can be scouted. But they're being set up for 6-year-olds.
What do you think that's about?
Well, when I see some of the excitement about every goal that's scored, I don't know if it's for posterity's sake or what, but
Yeah.
when you look and say, is the right thing being rewarded, celebrated, and taught? And there's a camera recording it, and it's got a system to track the touches of each player. That to me is, the answer to that is no. That there's a
Right,
there's
right,
a
right.
there's a misconnection there,
Yeah.
in terms of what should be versus what is. And
And by
this
the
is
way, even if you're going to try to use that as a tool, you're not doing it with that age.
no, I mean, sit down with
Kids,
a
kids, right.
7-year-old. I mean, technically, I mean, you look, we as a player, you remember this probably from college or whatever, but video sessions are hard enough with senior youth players and adult players. It's hard enough making a video session impactful, right?
Right.
And making it keeping attention. And so I would say, much more than 15 minutes, even with an adult, you're probably stretching it. You're going to tell me you have what, 5 seconds with a 7-year-old to show them a video? I mean, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's wild.
And
That's
listen, we
wild.
can all be accused of doing things at some point in our career that we are like, man, what was I doing? Okay. This is not us sitting out on a high. This is
Right.
this is, looking at it. But I
I
think that,
think I look at, back to what we were saying. I think we have a real fundamental challenge within with our league and just within youth soccer in general of putting the importance, I don't know, I'm going to say it right. The focus and celebrating those age groups and those coaches and making talented coaches want to coach in those age groups.
yeah, but you know what? And yes, I would say I think there's a lot of very good people working very hard that we as a country, we as a leading organization need to figure out what needs to be done to empower them, to
Yeah.
train them better, to support them so that they can do what they want to do even at a higher level and not feel I guess it's maybe redundant, but not feel unsupported, unvalued, and certainly unequipped because it is hard to teach anybody, especially in a collective environment. The challenge of coaching is managing the individual within the collective,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's the hardest. It's really coaching becomes a lot simpler if all you're doing is worrying about the collective and saying,
Right.
okay, I just got to organize the collective, put the best kids on the field, and then we try and figure it out on game day. That's a lot simpler job than figuring out how do I manage these individuals so that they all are moving in a good direction, they all are getting better, and then I'm trying to get them in a collective because the game is ultimately a collective sport, but I have to manage each one of them based on where they're at and their strengths and weaknesses. I have to put that as a very primary thing as I'm looking at putting together the collective, especially when I'm dealing with zone one or even most youth age groups.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is a really a massively important challenge that we put more education resources into those entry level and zone one, though that coaching population, if you will. I think it's just incredibly important. And then, make sure that we have people that desire not to do great at those age groups so they can move up to the next age group, but do great at those age groups so that they can get even better in those age groups and continue to impact players at those age groups. And I just think that's a real challenge. And I mean, you said it on here and it just made me go, wow, that's, you know what? I think that's, you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, and we can go even broader and say, the quality of what's happening in most clubs now compared to 20 years ago
Oh,
is
yeah.
way higher,
Yeah,
right? The
totally.
club is a much more professional organization. It's far more efficient. They are doing, I think soccer's way better in a lot of regards. But I think you can still look and say it's still in the average club, even the best clubs. It's challenge enough to manage one team in one age group with all the issues it has. There is an enormous need and opportunity for how do you still create a better connected methodology? How do you create a better support network for the coaches? And I'm not talking about emotional support and that sort of stuff. I'm talking about specific skill acquisition. How am I supporting them so that they are growing the skills necessary to be great at what they do? And that by necessity means evaluating them to identify where there's gaps and where there are needs. That I think there's still huge needs in this country for clubs to figure out how to solve that and tackle that. And some aren't going to want to hear that, but it takes resources to do this. And that is a challenge, a continuing challenge. But it also takes prioritization.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to put more time into this specific age or stage or this specific process that will result in, and unfortunately, when you're talking about improving coaches, that measurement and the rewards for that, they're not totally long term because I think a better coach does have an impact quickly, but to really see significant ones, it does take more than a season.
Yeah.
So you're betting on the long term, and again, that's also challenging in any environment. When people are looking for results now.
You're into your second kind of year, right? Of this. What of zone one coaching? What's been your biggest like takeaway, your biggest learning from it? And do you think you'll make it through this season without getting fired? Because you're getting into that area.
Yeah, I'm getting the end of the year.
You better start getting results, mister.
Yeah. I mean, there's been so many takeaways. I tell you, a number one takeaway is the respect I have for the coaches that work in zone one and how hard that job is. And also probably like anything, you can understand something, through narrative or through story or through, third person, but really getting in, you learn it deeper. And I think a reminder of how complex the sport is and how important it is to break things down to very discrete coaching points. And I'm not talking about, separating technique from decision making or anybody who's going to start to get overly philosophical on me. I'm saying if you're talking about a group of kids who really doesn't know much at all about anything, where do you start? And then how do you stay focused so that where you start, you make an impact and then you can build on that. So, you're going level by level. I think that has been a really, really challenging.
You start at the beginning,
experience.
Christian.
At the beginning,
You start at
yes.
the beginning.
It's a very good place to start, as they
Yes.
said in
Yes, it is.
famous song.
For all you coaches out there who are hopefully at the youth level, not experiencing a short leash, although, there are times, I mean, heck, I've had teams that I've been with and coached where it just wasn't a good fit, or I didn't get the most out of them and it was time to move. It's a lot tougher to swallow that when you're young and you have, you're carrying your ego with you. As you get older, you have a little bit more perspective, I guess. But so, changes will happen. But man, to all you pro coaches in the Premier League who are going to be fired within the next half a season, we're sorry for you, and keep your head up, right? This is tough. If zone one is tough, coaching in the Premier League must be
Lonely, as they say, I
Very
think.
lonely. Yes, I think that's right. All right. Well, that's a great, good conversation about that. Let's hear from our sponsors. Then we'll come back. A little Bracken Brainbuster to a little festive Bracken Brainbuster today to wrap it up.
All right.
Nike is a proud sponsor of ECNL. Nothing can stop what we do together to bring positive change to our communities. You can't stop sport because hashtag you can't stop our voices. Follow Nike on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. The ECNL is pleased to have Quick Goal as the official goal provider and partner for ECNL girls and ECNL boys. Partnership created to support the growth and development of the country's top players, clubs, and coaches at all national events, including national playoffs and national finals. The Quick Goal Coaches Corner will provide hospitality and social space for ECNL girls, ECNL boys, and collegiate coaches. Quick Goal will also be the presenting sponsor of the national championship winning ECNL girls and ECNL boys Coach of the Year and the ECNL girls and ECNL boys Goals of the Year. Quick Goal looks forward to helping the ECNL continue to elevate the standards of youth soccer and provide more opportunities to players on and off the field in the coming years. Score big with Continental Tire. Prioritize your safety on the road with our thoroughly tested tires for top-notch traction, handling, and durability. Drive with confidence. Find your dealer at continentaltire.com. Continental Tire, smart choice in tires. Sponsors, thank you for your support. All right, everybody, we ready? Festive, Bracken Brainbuster. I was thinking about this today and I was like, have I asked this question before? I feel like I should probably have like a spreadsheet with all the past questions so that I don't repeat myself. But as we all get really on the edge of our seat as the holiday season comes on, I'm going to ask what your favorite holiday is and why. And we know that me and Christians, we do not care for Halloween. So we'll start there. I'm going to go with Reed Sellers.
My favorite holiday is Christmas, for a few reasons. You just can't beat the vibes of it, the music, the weather, just being around family. That's really what it all comes down to. And the movies are great. It's just hard to beat.
And what is your favorite Christmas movie? See, I pivot right there. See, I do.
Yeah, no, okay.
Right.
Here's when he says Die Hard, and then we debate whether that's a Christmas
No,
movie.
no.
It's 100% a Christmas movie.
I think Home Alone maybe. Just off
Quality.
the top of my head, but if I thought about it some more, maybe something else could pop up.
All right.
Home
I put
Alone's
you on the
good.
spot. Home Alone, you can't go wrong with that. That's a good,
classic.
good one. Let's go to Christian Lavers.
Well,
I already know the answer.
Like really short answer. It's Christmas because of all reasons. Hey, God's gift is given on Christmas, as they say, and then it's a great moment with family. And movie for Christmas, I think you got Die Hard, you got Home Alone, you got Love Actually. It's a pretty good Christmas movie, I think.
Okay.
You know, and it's hard to beat. It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay. You did a Dean Linke 4 answers for 1 question. So
there's so many. And by the way, I didn't say any of the Hallmark movies, right? Which really kind of love to watch just to say how.
What's funny is if you know Christian, and I've known him for a long time now, it's really weird that he is a Hallmark movie kind of guy because he doesn't like his persona.
I don't give you that warm fuzzy, Doug.
No, I don't. I don't know about that. I don't think you do. So, but good on you. And maybe it'll help soften the edges there. All right, let's go to Jacob.
I'm going to go on the record saying I'm extremely offended because my favorite holiday is Halloween. Wow. And seeing all of you guys trash on it has been really hard for my heart.
Well, tell us why it's your favorite, and we'll try to see if we could be swayed.
It's honestly a lot of the same reasons that Reed talked about. It's the weather. Fall is my favorite season. It's cold. It's cool, but it's not super cold. I just love kind of the spooky vibes of everything. I love going to pumpkin patches and apple picking. I'm also a sucker for a really good theme, so being able to dress up in costume with a theme is super fun. And I've just always liked it as a kid, and I love candy, so it's kind of good getting all the candy and eating it on it for the next 3 weeks. And scary movies. I love horror movies.
You know what, Jacob? Different perspectives is what makes life interesting.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Give me your best horror movie then.
Oh God, no such
My
thing.
favorite horror movie is this movie called Stay Alive. It was made probably about 2006, and the premise is if you die in a video game, you die for real, and it's based off of the real life Dracula. It's great. It's so good.
Jacob Bourne, where Dean Linke is the king of mentioning his wife every episode, and we missed Dean today. Jacob is the classic random music, random movie, random guy. Very random.
Jacob, our creative team loves me. Our creative team loves me because I send a metal song every Monday, and this entire month of October, it's been horror themed music videos.
Okay. All right. My son Max is a big horror movie guy, and me not so much.
Good man.
The Exorcist did me in.
Oh yeah.
Did me in. Are you dressing up as anything for this Halloween?
Yes. Me and Laura, my wife, we will be Morticia and Gomez Adams.
Okay, like that. We'll need some pictures. I'm gonna go Christmas as well. I honestly love decorating the house inside. It just feels super cozy when you have all the Christmas stuff up, and it's hard to be in a bad mood when you walk in your house and there's lights and there's Christmas Village and all those things. So that and just enjoyed spending time with family, and I like giving gifts. Gifts are fun, so that's always fun to see if people like your gifts. I will say one thing I'll warn you against is last year we played what we called the Christmas Olympics here at the house with me and Amy and the 4 kids, and the first game was the smack the person with a tortilla when they have water in their mouth and see if they can keep the water in their mouth. And it was me against my wife. And smacking your wife with a tortilla, I found out, bad idea. It's just a bad idea.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Hurts the Christmas.
I think this is one of those things I award you 0 points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
It's one of those where I hit her with it, and then I looked at her face, and I was like, "Oh boy, that didn't go well. That was not good." So yes, but there you go. With all the holidays coming up, Halloween for you, Jacob, on Friday, man, we'll be thinking of you, and I'll be hating all the kids coming and bothering me at my door. How about that? That's all we got, Christian. Another great conversation.
As always.
See everybody in 2 weeks.